When a real crisis hits, what's our very first instinct? A lot of the time it's to doubt, maybe to blame someone, and to just feel this unquenchable thirst for answers. Today we're going to dive into a really ancient story that gets right to the heart of that feeling, a journey from a totally barren desert to a source of what it calls living water.
Now, really, think about it for a sec. When your back's against the wall and things look desperate, what's that gut reaction that just kind of boils up to the surface?
For most of us, it's something like this. We doubt the path we're on, we question our own decisions, and yeah, we often look for someone to blame. And this deeply human instinct is at the core of a super powerful story from the book of Exodus.
Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got the people of Israel, who have just been dramatically freed from generations of slavery in Egypt. They're on this epic journey with their leader Moses, heading towards a new life. But right now, they are stranded in the middle of a blistering hot desert, and they've just run out of water.
Total panic sets in. The people immediately turn on Moses, and their question is just dripping with accusation. They're not just saying, hey, we're thirsty. They're saying, you dragged us out here to die. In a heartbeat, they're questioning the entire reason for their freedom.
This moment is so important that the place actually gets a symbolic name, Massah. In Hebrew, this means trial or test. See, this wasn't just a tough spot to be in, it became the moment where the people put God on trial.
And it gets a second name too, Meribah, which means quarrel or accusation. This really drives the point home. Their panic wasn't just a test of their own strength. It blew up into an open fight, a direct accusation aimed at the very one who had just saved them.
And this is the question that cuts right to the heart of their panic. Is the Lord among us or not? To put it in our terms, they're basically asking, is God on our side or is he against us? And that's a profound doubt that, let's be honest, echoes through the ages. It's a question we all ask when things get hard.
So you see, this whole dramatic event in the desert wasn't just some fleeting moment of panic that was forgotten. It became a foundational lesson in the entire biblical story about that crucial choice we all have to make between doubt and trust.
Fast forward a few centuries, and this exact event gets called out in Psalm 95. It's used as this powerful warning for all the generations to come, saying, hey, when you face your desert, when you're in your crisis, learn from what happened back then. Choose a different way. Don't let your heart get hard with doubt.
And this sets up this really powerful contrast, almost like two different kinds of hearts. You've got the heart of doubt, which is just stuck on that one question, is God for us or against us? But then you have the heart of faith, and its response is, Amen. Now what's so cool is that the Hebrew root of the word Amen means solid, stable. So saying amen isn't just, I agree. It's a declaration. It's saying this is solid, this is a rock I can actually lean on.
And the language itself gives us a huge clue here. The word for obey in this world isn't about blindly following rules. It actually comes from the same root as the word to listen. You know the most famous Jewish prayer, Shema Israel? It means listen, Israel. So faith, in this view, isn't blind belief. It's a posture of active, trusting listening. It's about having an open ear instead of a closed heart.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, right? It's one thing to talk about trust, but how do we actually overcome that really powerful, really parching thirst of doubt? I mean, back in the desert, the people got water from a rock, but the story seems to be pointing toward a much deeper solution.
So, to find that solution, the narrative kind of jumps forward in time by centuries to another story about thirst. But this time, it's not a huge crowd in the desert. It's a really intimate one-on-one conversation between Jesus and a Samaritan woman at a well.
And right here, we see this crucial shift in perspective. Jesus takes the immediate problem, physical thirst, and he completely reframes it. He starts talking about two kinds of water. There's the water from the well, which, it quenches your body for a few hours. But then there's this living water that he's offering, and it's totally different. It's an internal spring that promises to quench a much deeper spiritual thirst forever.
The way he phrases this is so important. He doesn't just say the water will satisfy you. He says it will become in you a source, a spring that's constantly welling up. So he's not talking about an external fix. He's talking about a complete internal, life-giving transformation.
I mean, that is a beautiful and a really compelling offer. But it does raise a pretty logical question, especially when you think about that raw doubt we saw back in the desert. Why should anyone trust this promise? Where's the proof? Well, the argument these texts make is that the final, definitive answer to that question from the desert, is God for us or against us, isn't going to be another miracle, like water from a rock. It's something way more personal, way more profound.
According to the Apostle Paul, the proof isn't some big display of power, it's an act of love. And what's so radical about it is when this love is shown, while we were still sinners. In other words, this is an act of love for the guilty, for the ones who are quarreling and doubting. It's presented as the definitive yes to that question, is God for us?
And this is where all the different threads of the story just come together beautifully. This act of love is described as being poured out into our hearts, and that is the ultimate fulfillment of the promise of living water. It's an internal presence of love that becomes the very source of life itself.
So let's just quickly retrace this incredible narrative journey that we've just followed. It's a journey that starts with a very real, very human problem and moves all the way to a profound spiritual solution.
So the whole journey is right here. It started with a crisis, right? Physical thirst exposed a much deeper spiritual doubt. Then, in response, an offer was made, a living water for that soul-deep thirst. And to make that offer believable, a proof was given, a radical act of unconditional love. And the result? A faith that isn't fragile anymore, but one that becomes its own internal, life-giving spring.
And that leaves us with one last question. For our own lives, when we face our own deserts, our own moments of Massa and Meribah, what do we turn to? What's the living water we're looking for to quench the thirst of our own doubt and fear? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.